Hello, welcome to Claret and Blue. My name's Dan Rollins. I'm joined by, for long-time viewers of Claret and Blue, a familiar face and a one-off appearance, I think, Jordan Blackwell, a colleague at Reach PLC, the Leicester City correspondent. Jordan, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right, thanks, Dan. Yeah, I think I had hair the last time I was on this, so yeah, not so good. But I'm doing all right, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, great. I just went through our archives to find out when that was, and I think it was the Leicester City Villa semi-final in the Carabao Cup, and I think we did a debate about who's better, Grealish or Maddison.
Grealish or Maddison, yes, I remember doing that, yes.
How times have changed. Now, me and John did a podcast last week where we spoke about like the 5 positions Villa could improve, and we said central midfield was one of them. Tielemans was heavily linked at the time, and it seemed like it was going to happen, but we didn't want to kind of nail our colours to the mast too much by saying, yes, this is definitely going to happen, but it looked that way, and obviously now we know, confirmed over the weekend, he'll join from July 1st when his Leicester City contract officially expires. What kind of player are we getting here, Jordan, as a kind of general overview, first of all?
You are getting a very technically talented midfielder, an all-round midfielder who can do pretty much every aspect of the game. I think he's one who has particular qualities in sort of ball progression, I would say. His vision and the way he gets the ball up from the middle of the pitch into the attacking players is exceptional. That's, he's definite, Champions League quality in that department. He's a very intelligent player. Tactically, he understands everything. And I think you see that sometimes in the way he directs the team, but also in the way he controls the tempo of the game. He's very much one of those players that knows the right time to speed it up and the right time to slow it down. And he can influence the game in that way. He is a leader. He's been, Leicester captain on a fair few occasions over the past couple of years. I think I think Brendan Rodgers used to describe him as his coach on the pitch. So he's someone who can read the game well and knows, and knows what changes to make. I think probably the weaknesses are in his agility and things like that. Maybe the sort of more physical aspects of the game, which I think is probably stopped him from getting to the very, very top. But other than that, he's a very, very good footballer.
Do you think he benefits from having a more physical midfielder alongside him than somebody who's going to sit there and protect and allow him to kind of roam around a little bit more? That'd be fair.
Yeah, I think so. I think his best form at Leicester came when Ndidi was also in good form. He is a one-man shield for a back four when he's at his best. Which I think is probably why, I know we're going to get onto it, maybe why that Tielemans' form has dipped a little bit, maybe over the past couple of years, because Ndidi's form has also dipped. But yes, when he's at his best, I think you need somebody who can can protect the back four, can do a lot of the kind of tackles and interceptions to win the ball back and things like that, and then give Tielemans quick ball so that he can then either passes up to get it through into the attacking players. So yeah, that was when he was at his best, when Leicester sort of played it was a 4-3-3, but sort of 4-2-3-1, and Tielemans would be one of the two deeper midfielders, but with license to kind of go anywhere really, to get forward if he wanted to. And just because he needs that sort of more physical, that maybe defensive player on next to him, it doesn't mean he shies away from that. He does get stuck in. It's just sometimes his kind of agility sort of stops him from being able to contribute defensively.
Yeah, I've got some questions from social media that we're going to run through in a minute, which is basically, this video is going to be more of a what does he bring from a Leicester's perspective from your point of view, rather than a where does he fit into Villa's system, which we'll touch on, but I'm not expecting you to know as much about Villa's system as we would, so that's probably something we'll talk about another time. Let's go through some of these questions then. What's his best quality?
Definitely his vision. He will spot passes that others can't see. He will move the ball very, very well. I think sometimes he's perhaps criticised for those sorts of passes not coming off, but I think you will want to
try
it
at least.
Yes, you do, and he has the ability to pull it off more than anybody else in the Leicester team. Certainly in that deeper role. And getting it forward through the lines. Turning defence into attack, he's very, very good at. I would say that is his best quality.
I actually really like this signing, especially on a free. I think it makes a lot of sense. I was excited about it. Me and John, like I said, spoke last week, and we kind of waffled on for a little bit. What does he bring? Blah blah. And I just said, basically, would you like him? And he was like, yes, he's an excellent player. I really like him. My question in that video to John, which he couldn't answer, was my only reservation, and I think this is kind of echoed in certain aspects of social media, is I don't want to downplay Villa here at all, but why Villa? Because if you went back 18 months ago, it was Liverpool, Arsenal, 50, 60, 70 million, like going up to a Champions League side. Now, obviously, I've seen a lot of Leicester fans, and we'll talk about this in a little bit as well, kind of going, it's a sideways step, which I don't agree with at all. Leicester City are now, unfortunately for you, Jordan, in the Championship. Aston Villa in the Europa Conference League. Yes, it's not the heights of the Champions League that maybe Tielemans could have got 2 years ago, but football's changed. 2 years is a long time. He's not been as good in the last couple of years as he was before that. So why Aston Villa? Maybe because he's not good enough to get to those heights, but he certainly is an upward step from Leicester City without doubt at all. Is there any kind of deeper meaning there in that he has reached a ceiling, or he's not as good as maybe people expected him to be? How do you assess his kind of overall potential, I guess?
Well, I mean, I have to submit, I was surprised that he's gone to Villa. In a sense, maybe more surprised that it's sort of been sorted so early. I perhaps thought he would wait a little bit, to see if more clubs came in for him. Then again, I'm not surprised that he would want to tie it up so early, because he absolutely is the sort of player that would want to be there on the first day of pre-season.
Yeah, that's good. I like that.
He's very, very professional. He'd always be the first one to training. I think there were times at Leicester's old training ground where he would get there when the night security guard was still on, rather than the morning security guard, because he was getting there to do a session in the gym before training. So he's very, very committed. He's very, very professional in that sense. I think that's probably why he wanted to get it done earlier. But yes, I am surprised, because this is, he didn't sign a contract with Leicester 2 years ago when Leicester finished fifth and were in the Europa League, because he wanted Champions League football. So, this is not what he wanted, and this is not why he ran down his Leicester contract. But you're right, his form has probably dipped a little bit in the past 2 years. I would suggest the main reason he's not made the leap to one of the Champions League clubs is because of his physical attributes. And I think you need, nowadays, when you see Liverpool's midfield and you see Manchester City's midfield, you need to have the technical ability, and you have to have the physical attributes to prosper. You have to be able to run for 90 minutes. You have to be able to get from box to box. You have to have that stamina. And I don't think Tielemans has quite got that. So it's interesting, because I think he did want to stay in the Premier League, and I think he likes living locally, and obviously only moving to Villa means he probably will stay where he is, in North Leicestershire. And I know his family's settled here, and with his daughters. So I think he quite liked the idea of staying in the Premier League. But I do think if he'd gone into Europe, maybe where the game's not quite as hectic. I know that's a little bit of a cliche, but I do think it is slightly slower, in La Liga and Serie A. I do think in those leagues, he would be in a Champions League club. I think in the Premier League, because of the kind of extra kind of physical attributes that you need to be a midfielder at a top club, that's why he's not quite at that level. But also it might be because he's just been tired. And maybe if Villa were to use him in a slightly better way, then it may be that you don't see those physical attributes, those lacking physical attributes as much, because one of the issues that Leicester have had is that he just played all the time. Those 2 seasons in which Leicester finished fifth, he was in the team. I think he played the equivalent of 25 more games across the course of 2 seasons than any other Leicester outfield player did. Which, I think Leicester played about 100 games over those 2 seasons, because they were in Europe and whatever, and going far in cup competitions, and he played practically every game. And I do think, and he started all the time for Belgium as well, so he wasn't getting a rest in the international breaks. I think that's possibly a reason why he's maybe dipped a little bit, because I do think he's been running to the ground a little bit. And also, I would say perhaps the opinions that Villa fans are seeing from Leicester supporters on social media, I think they're probably a little bit harsh, because I think Tielemans' performances over the past couple of years have been viewed through the lens of, well, this is a player that doesn't want to be here because he's not signing a contract. And I think when you view performances through that lens, you perhaps view them more harshly, and you look for mistakes, and you look for a lack of effort somewhere, and you say, well, he's not trying there because he doesn't want to be here. I think that's a little bit harsh, to be honest. I think he has always been committed. I just think those sorts of mistakes and sort of those moments where he was tired became more pronounced because everybody was looking at it from the view that he doesn't want to be here.
I almost played down Villa there a few minutes ago about why Villa, and he couldn't have got better than that. Absolutely don't want to have that come across to be the case at all. I think if he's not getting offers from a top 4 club in England, which is where he wants to stay, because there was talk of Roma, wasn't there, and somebody else
AC Milan,
side, AC Milan. Obviously, Champions League over there, like you said, playing in a different role. I think I've read somewhere that he lives 40 minutes away from Bodymoor Heath or something, so he doesn't need to move house at the moment. Settled in the area, wants to play in the Premier League. I understand all that. You've also got the flip side of it, where he might be looking at what Unai Emery has done over the last 6 months with Villa and think, well, give it another 18 months and Villa might be in the Champions League themselves anyway. Like, this is a project that I can get behind and believe in and achieve something with them. So, yeah, I don't want to be seen as underselling Villa at all. They could win the Conference League this year, be in the Europa League next year, and give it 3 or 4 seasons, and I'll be doing what I want to do in my long-term future, but Aston Villa.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I probably should have said that as well. I think he will have looked at Villa, and I think, to be honest, I think any player would think this. Any player would think, well, working under Unai Emery, I will improve. And as you say, they're on a good trajectory. I think, am I right in saying Villa would have been 5th in a table just if it was just after Emery took charge?
I think it's 3rd.
Oh, right, okay. So there you go. So yeah, they are on that trajectory. I think he will have considered all that. He has advisors, alongside, even beyond his agent. So all that sort of stuff would have been considered. So I don't think you need to worry about Tielemans, choosing Villa because of the money or anything like that. He will have chosen Villa because they are the right project for him. He knows what he's doing.
I want to go back to that point about minutes played in a second. Yeah. Let's just talk about kind of application and attitude for a little bit, because I think this is maybe a slight concern amongst some Villa supporters that I've seen. And again, me and John, the video we did last week, I'd urge you to go and watch that because I keep referring back to it. We spoke about it very quickly about the clip that is done the rounds on social media. You already know what I'm going to talk about here.
Yeah.
I don't know the game. I don't know the context. I don't know whether you're already losing, but there's a clip of him kind of not chasing back whoever the opposition player is and kind of trundling himself across the halfway line. And the clip is kind of taking the mickey to go, he's not putting it in, his legs have gone, he doesn't want to chase back, he doesn't care, he's got a bad attitude. Are any of those accusations correct, first of all? And do you know the further context of that clip where you're already 3-0 down or something? Because you could probably find a moment of most clubs doing something like that at some stage in the season, I would suspect.
Yeah, I don't know the context of the clip. No, other than I know it wasn't, I don't think it was the season just gone. I think it was the season before. Was it against West Ham, I think?
Yeah, if you're already losing 2-0 and that's in the 90th minute, loads of players aren't running back at full sprint to get back and defend. Like, there's nothing wrong with that.
I don't think that is... It's definitely not a willingness to run back. What you will notice is, you probably have seen in that clip, Tielemans' head started to wobble. That's when you know he's tired, when his head starts to wobble. So I think that's it won't be any lack of kind of effort. But if it was against West Ham, which I think it was, I'm making a point now and I'm not even entirely sure, but Leicester's games against West Ham have been very end-to-end over the past couple of seasons, and Tielemans playing where he does will be expected to get forward and back, forward and back, forward and back. So maybe it's just got to a point where he didn't have the energy to get back. So yeah, I don't think there's any accusations that could be made about lack of effort, commitment and things like that. I remember there was a moment last season where he properly celebrated winning a throw-in. There was no point really, I didn't think, where, just sort of easing to the end of the season and easing to the end of his Leicester career or anything like that. So no, I just think he gets asked to do a lot, and in 90 minutes, and I don't think he quite has the stamina to do everything that he wants to do, and be influential at both ends of the pitch for the whole game. And I do think you see moments like that where he does look a little bit tired. But that's the key. If you start to see his head wobble, then he's tired.
I saw a graph this morning of like minutes played versus age, I think it was, and it was a load of different players as they got older, 21, 22, 23, and minutes played per season or something. I can't remember what it was, but basically Youri Tielemans was the youngest to have hit minutes played. Basically, he was high up on the graph, is what I'm trying to say. Played loads of minutes for the age he is, and how that contributes to have his legs gone and this tracking back thing, whether he's kind of blowing after 75 minutes or whatever it is. Just quickly on that, I'll get your kind of thoughts on that, how much he's played and whether that has had an effect. He's only 26 and recently 26 as well in the last kind of month or so. So you kind of be saying this is a player who's about to enter their peak, enter their prime, not kind of worrying about have their legs gone. And I think the concern is that because a big club hasn't come for him, it's that they've spotted that he's played a lot of minutes and he might be on the decline rather than about to hit his peak, and that give it 2 or 3 years. And we're talking about Tielemans being this player that can't manage a half of football and get shipped out to Turkey or whatever, and we all go, oh, what a waste of time that was. I wouldn't go that far. I think that there is a player in here, and I think Unai Emery is probably the manager to unlock something in him.
Players can look fitter if the tactics and the way they play sort of helps their game a little bit. They may not actually be any fitter, but they could look at if they get moments where they get to conserve energy and things like that. And I think that's been the problem at Leicester, is that there have been, like in that clip, there have been too many moments where Leicester's tactics have exposed Tielemans' weaknesses. And that's not ideal, clearly. But I think there are definite ways to work around that, and as I said, it's never for a lack of effort or anything like that. But yeah, the minutes played thing is interesting. I would say at this point I wouldn't say it's a concern, because in terms of the total minutes in his career, it's not like he's played as many as a 36-year-old. That would be preposterous. But for a 26-year-old, yes, he has played a lot. Perhaps what you expect of a 28 or 29-year-old. He broke through into the Anderlecht team at 16. Basically, as soon as he broke into the team, he was starting every game. And that's the thing. He's just, every single season he's played in his career, whether it was at Anderlecht, Monaco or Leicester, he has played practically every minute. Rodgers always used to say he was a player who was better in rhythm, who was better when they were playing twice a week and had, could prepare for games like that and didn't have the disruptions or anything. Now, I think that's debatable, but that was certainly his viewpoint, and he never changed that. Rodgers did always stand by that was the best approach to Tielemans, was keeping him in the team. But yeah, I just feel like it probably did get to points where it exposed his lack of fitness at times. I'd also say that these past few weeks as well, Tielemans damaged his ankle ligaments in a game against Arsenal in February, sort of jumped up to win a header, came down, and sort of as he landed, he sort of twisted his ankle. Was out for 6 weeks, and then he returned for Dean Smith's first game and clearly wasn't fit. And I think that's probably an issue. So if Villa fans have seen any Leicester supporters talking about how he's played over these past sort of 8 games as Leicester got relegated, the reason Tielemans was poor was because he actually wasn't fit, rather than just sort of looking a little bit like he didn't have the stamina. But that's the thing, he's been so influential and so important to the way Leicester play. Leicester don't have any other players that could get the ball from the deeper midfield positions into the likes of Maddison and Barnes like Tielemans does. There definitely are stats out there about the ball progression. I think he is maybe the best in the league outside of the very top clubs. Even playing for a team that finished 18th, the number of progressive passes that he played was a very top level. So yeah, in a team that has a lot of the ball, and in a team that is confident and playing well and playing attacking football, he will produce even more of those, I would suggest.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds exciting. Let's talk a little bit about position then, and go back to some of these questions from social media. Is he capable of playing in a wide midfield position, given Emery's propensity for using attack-biased midfields in said position? Now, first of all, I had to Google what propensity means. It's interesting what we were talking about, kind of fitness and application and maybe agility, or the kind of physical attributes that playing a wide midfield role maybe sounds a little bit strange to put somebody out in a more kind of physical position if they're not kind of suited for that. But Villa playing a system with John McGinn and Jacob Ramsey out wide, who aren't who aren't wingers and who are kind of more central midfield players, but they're not wide players in that they're hooking the touchline at and whipping balls in. They start from that side, but they kind of cut in and whatever.
Yeah,
I think you talk about progressive passes and carrying the ball. I think probably Jacob Ramsey, again, I'm not seeing the stats, so I'd imagine he would be up there from the eye test playing off the left. So I think the question here is probably that maybe Tielemans doesn't come in and start every week in a central role. I could quite see him on that left-hand side role, covering for Jacob Ramsey or rotating with him. That you've got Kamara and Louise as the pivot players at the moment, and I think they're probably untouchable. So if they're the central players, I don't see Tielemans starting over those. But having Youri Tielemans as a rotation option is an upgrade to Aston Villa, and that's all well and good. Could you see him playing that kind of role off the left or off the right even? And like I said, it's not a winger role, but obviously they are asked to carry the ball forward and do lots of running. Do you think he's got the capabilities to do something like that, or is he purely a central player?
No, I have to say, based on what I know of Villa and what I've seen, I would say that Ramsey and McGinn would be much better at that than Tielemans would be.
Okay.
I just think there's I think both of those you can get both Ramsey and McGinn, I feel, carry the ball. They're more than happy to carry the ball as well as, play it forward. I think Tielemans is always going to look to play the pass forward and not actually carry it up the pitch. He will run with it occasionally, but I just don't think he's got the speed to carry it from those sorts of positions. So no, I couldn't see him playing that sort of role. I think it would be, if Villa wanted to get the best out of him, I think he would have to play in one of the positions that you've said, either Kamara or Louise place. So I can't really see that, but I suppose Emery's probably a manager. If there's any manager, Emery's probably a manager that could make it work.
It's interesting, really, because we're talking about a player that's played loads of games, loads of minutes, like we said, and rarely misses a game through injury until, like the one you said, in February of this year. Yeah. If Kamara and Louise are the first choice of Villa, that automatically puts Tielemans on the bench if he's not going to play one of those wide positions, because there's no other place for him. And we play Watkins with a kind of second striker, number 10 kind of player off him. Tielemans could possibly do that role, potentially behind Watkins. Maybe that suits all parties. Villa need more strength in depth for more games with the Europa Conference League, and what they will want to go as far as they can in the FA Cup and the League Cup as well. And Youri Tielemans, like you said, maybe Brendan Rodgers thinks he's a player that needs rhythm, and obviously Tielemans will want to play every single game that he can, like any footballer would. But being a rotation player might suit him as well.
I do think he would benefit from that, having the opportunity to have a bit of a rest every now and again. That's the thing. It would be interesting to see that, because it never happened at Leicester. Yeah. So I don't know if it would. Rodgers' claim that he's better in rhythm is true, because we never saw him out of that. So he either played every single game, or I think there was 2 periods he had injuries, which was earlier this season, and he had a short injury, like 4-week injury. But he either didn't play because he was injured, or he played every single game. So it was never a case of seeing him. Did
he finish every game as well, or was he subbed off, or did he play the full?
No, he would normally finish every game as well. So again, because he was so influential to Leicester's, to the way Leicester played. So like the case in point, towards the end of last season, when Leicester were in the Conference League, quarterfinals and semi-finals, because everything was crammed in last season, it was like Leicester were playing twice a week, every week for about 6 or 7 weeks, I think, because they had COVID. They had COVID postponements in January, so they were having those filled in April and May. So I think for the whole of April and May, Leicester played twice a week, every single week. Basically, Rodgers had a midweek team and a weekend team for basically that whole period. Tielemans and Dewsbury Hall were the 2 players who played every single game in that period, because they didn't feel that they could go without them, basically. I'm now going to be sort of watching Tielemans from afar. That would be the interesting thing for me, to see how he gets on in a team maybe where he doesn't play as often, and whether he will be able to, whether he's able to play at the really top level that we saw him, the season that Leicester won the FA Cup 2 years ago. I think maybe there's a bit of bitterness there now, so maybe fans wouldn't admit this, but I would say it was one of the best individual seasons that a Leicester player's ever had, in terms of their influence on the game, and also providing the big moments as well.
So I think from our conversation, you've kind of only reaffirmed what I thought already, that technically we all know kind of, yes, he's not had a great season. Leicester City haven't had a great season, so I can kind of, not that it means nothing to me, but good players get relegated. It happens. So I think technically, I don't think there's any doubt in that he's got the ability to still be a very good player. He's still at a good age, despite what we've said about how many games he's played for his age. That doesn't necessarily mean he's on the kind of downward curve. Application and work rate and attitude was some of the question marks that I had about, again, it's basically from that one clip, which says everything about social media, isn't it? You don't watch much of Leicester City. He's been relegated. Oh, he's been relegated. What does that mean? Is his attitude not right there? Well, there's a clip of him not tracking back. Oh, disaster. Like, this player isn't fit for purpose. You kind of alleviated that. If he's first into the training session and wants to improve himself, I don't think there's a better environment than Aston Villa and a better coach in Emery to manifest that. So physicality is only the kind of final thing, and the last kind of question from social media. Well, two actually, I suppose. One, has he fulfilled his true potential yet? Like we said at the start, you consider 26 to be a player in their prime. So is he going to get better? And secondly, is his lack of pace a problem?
I'm not sure about that first one, because I felt that the season I mentioned a couple of years ago when Leicester won the FA Cup, it felt like you were watching a complete player. So even though he was 23 for most of that season and turned 24 at the end of it, it didn't feel like you were watching a player still learning the game. For Villa, the aim will be to just get him back to that level, rather than necessarily hope that he could go beyond that. If Villa get him to that level, he is a Champions League quality player. So there's no really need to kind of say, can he get better? Does he have potential? Because that's the potential, getting him to the level he was 2 years ago. The pace, yes, I would say, is as we've sort of outlined, is probably the main issue, and has probably been the barrier to him getting a very top club. The main issue with it is that the way Leicester have played and how poor Leicester have been has exposed that, rather than it actually being a problem with Tielemans. So I think Villa would be able to get around that quite comfortably, as Leicester did a couple of years ago when they had Ndidi in top form, and it didn't. It was never a conversation 2 years ago that Tielemans lacked physicality, or lacked a bit of pace. You would never have said it was one of his qualities. You would never have said, oh, he's really speedy or anything like that. But you just wouldn't have looked at the kind of the lack of it as a negative, because he was doing so much other good stuff, but also the way Leicester played didn't necessarily expose it. That would be I think that's the one doubt. But I think if Emery's clever enough, he can, which he is, he can work around that and come up with a tactic and a way for Tielemans to play within the Villa team that gets around that and stops it being a problem.
The final question is, don't really want to dwell on it too much, but it's kind of the reaction from the Leicester side of things, or the Leicester fan base side of things. That the question is, if he'd gone to a traditional top six club or a Champions League club, do you think the Leicester fan base would have been more forgiving? The fan base seems to hate the fact that he's gone to Villa. There seems to be this kind of rivalry between Leicester and Villa that exists on the Leicester side of things more so than
yes. Well, this is an accusation levelled at Leicester quite often, is because they don't have any true
no proper rival.
Yeah, so Forest is the one where the amount of times that Forest say that they don't care about Leicester kind of suggests that they maybe do care a little bit. But yeah, it's not quite that with Villa yet. I think the issue is this is the reality hitting Leicester fans. I think the 8 seasons prior to the last one, Leicester finished above Villa in the league ladder. Obviously, Villa would have been in the Championship for a few of those. So to finish above a club for 8 seasons in a row and then finish below them for one, and all of a sudden they're taking one of your best players, I think that's what happens.
It's not just finishing below, is it?
No, exactly.
Got relegated.
Yeah, exactly. They've had one terrible season, and one terrible season has been enough for for Villa to become a huge step up from where Leicester are. Yeah, I think because they felt as a club that they were at least on a par with Villa for much of the past decade, and now the reality is hitting that they're not. So I think that would be if there's any bitterness in Leicester fans, I think that's probably where it is. Would they have been happier
sort of thing as well? If you go back to 2018, 2019, so like when Villa were trying to get promoted, Leicester are probably the model to follow of a side that is overachieved and is now putting around the Champions League and signs good players, sells players on for good money. Like, they're the club to emulate. You wouldn't say that about Leicester now, would you? So Villa are now top dog. Again, it's one season, but Villa are now top dogs of the Midland sides again, and that should be seen as a step up. And players will see that as a project with Emery as they're going in the right direction, and I want to be on board with that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think there was an obvious kind of for the very top clubs that Leicester have sold players to, like Maguire and Chilwell and Mahrez and stuff, it was kind of obvious, well, yeah, we get it. We know why you're going to Chelsea and Man U and Man City. I just think this readjustment has perhaps hit Leicester a bit hard, or Leicester fans hit them a bit hard because, they've not been used to their best players moving to clubs outside what we would call the big six. But yeah, you're right. And I think Villa are clearly a team on the up, and Tielemans has obviously recognised that. And I do think he'll do very well.
The chat about Tielemans, very insightful, and hopefully people have enjoyed it as well. Thank you very much for everyone for watching live with this on Facebook. For the YouTube version, I've edited lots of this out because I've been all over the place. So hopefully you've enjoyed it. Jordan, thank you for your time as always, and we'll see you again very soon on Claret and Blue.